This show is sponsored by my new business, MACapital. I had success in my previous business acquiring companies before I exited earlier in the year. MACapital is set up to support business owners on that journey, whether they want to sell now or they want to set up for a profitable exit later in the future. If this has piqued your interest and you'd like to work with me, head over to macapital.co.uk. Liam, thanks for coming on, mate.
No worries, mate.
So you've been a letting agent for 10 years and you're currently managing 500 properties. But before we get into all that, take me back to when Liam was growing up and who Liam was.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a Darlington lad. So I grew up in Darlington. I've probably lived on every rough estate in Darlington throughout my time. So I spent a lot of years living on Redhall. And for those that know Darlington know that that's the Darlington equivalent to Beirut. Right. I've lived on Firth Moor, lived near Skirn Park. So I grew up, single parent family, me, my brothers and sisters, that sort of thing. And really my aspirations in life were I always wanted to go in the army. And that's what I always wanted to do from a very young age. I'd run around in camouflage clothes and that's the only thing I wanted in life. That's all I was going to do. And there was no other goals, no other ambitions really. Unfortunately, at 16, I got medically deferred and told that I would never be in the army for that reason. And it left me a little bit, kind of, what do I do now? Where do I go next? Did all right at school, got fair grades, that sort of thing. Didn't set the world on fire, but they weren't poor. Hated school, had absolutely no intention of wanting to continue in education. So the idea of going on to college, university, that sort of thing to me was, I couldn't have thought of anything worse, to tell you the truth. So it's kind of where do I go next? What do I do now? And I fell into a job working for EE in a call centre. Again, the definition of hell, to be honest. 12-hour days, sat there listening to people shout at you because the phone bill's too expensive is not how I saw the rest of my life. It's not what I wanted to do. So, and then I fell into a job in agency and the rest is history, really. Here I am today, 10 years on, still doing it.
Guys, just a quick one. Over 75% of our listeners aren't subscribed. So if you are enjoying this, please show some support by liking, commenting or subscribing wherever you're watching the podcast. It'll allow us to keep getting on amazing guests and it's massively appreciated. Back to the show. EE must have been bad, mate, if you can suffer 10 years in agency.
Absolutely, yeah. EE was not my forte. I was there... did an apprenticeship. It was really funny because they offered apprenticeships where essentially you were doing the same job as the full-timers but being paid half the wage.
Yeah, I think that's what an apprenticeship is.
Yeah, really? Absolutely. It's hard work. But we're in customer service and billing, so all I got was people phoning up that the bill was high, it was expensive, it wasn't working and it wasn't nice.
Yeah, so what year was this then when you left school?
Left school 2013. So
2013. That's... So you must be a year older than me then, because I left in 2012.
Yeah.
So, do you know Sean? I had Sean on the podcast. He said he was a Darlow lad.
I don't know him from Darlow.
From Darlow.
He's a few years older, but I know him from obviously the industry and so forth. And, through the property stuff.
Yeah, interesting, because he said he was like a Darlow lad on, different estates and stuff. I think he moved down south, to be fair, so yeah. Yeah, interesting, mate. So, why agency?
It's a funny story. So there's Paul, RMD, we've been friends for a lot of years. We actually met lots of years ago as army cadets when we were kids. And then Paul went off and set his own agency up. And I remember for the whole time I was at EE, I was badgering him. Get a job, mate. Get a job. Because I thought in my head, estate agency, it's fantastic. It's great money. It's a high life. That's what I want to do. It's the other side of property that gives you that, not estate agency. But I was quite irresponsible at the time. I liked the beer a bit too much. I'd go out on the weekend a bit too often. And he used to say to me, not a chance in hell will I give you a job until you can prove you can hold something down and be sensible. So then obviously I was at EE, did a bit of time there. And then he rang me one day out of the blue. Do you want a job? I was like, go on, I'll give it a go. And I started off as a property manager at first, doing repairs and maintenance. And then it just progressed from there. I think I've done every role within a estate agency that anyone could possibly do. I know it inside out, and that's that really. So it was never a choice. It was always a perception that agency was great money and I was going to be a millionaire from it. Not quite the case. Realised that very quickly. Completely accidental, but I think I found my passion when I started doing it. I enjoy what I do. No 2 days are the same. Really enjoy it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, you and Paul had similar interests in the army and cadets and stuff like that. Is that why you were?
I think we had similar interests in Army Cadets when we were younger. Obviously, he's got quite a family background in agency, so he's got family that have worked in agency, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a natural course for him. And then he had an opportunity to set up with Anthony, his business partner at Sillers. And then it kind of went from there, really. But we've always been quite good friends. And like I say, I pestered him until I got my foot in the door, and it's worked out. So
fair play. So you've been doing that for 10 years.
10 years,
so you must
nearly.
be doing something right, Liam.
I must be absolutely. From a little 18-year-old apprentice dealing with leaky gutters to pretty much being the face of the business and dealing with the high ticket services. It's a huge transformation.
It is, mate, yeah. I mean, that is some journey, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going from like the very, let's call it the bottom, dealing with the maintenance and stuff. You know, the quite reactive stuff to literally being the face of the business. Because one of the things I've got written down here is, I mean, seeing you a lot more on social media recently.
Absolutely.
And obviously that must be a conscious decision that you're going to be that guy to do it for the business.
I think kind of when you've got longevity and time served like I have, I've got a lot of loyalty. I have no intentions of going anywhere. So that's my future. Sillers Properties is my future. I see myself as part of the furniture. I want to grow that business and it's part of me. So realistically, it made sense. It doesn't help that Paul's a bit camera shy. You'd struggle to get him in front of a camera. I
thought you might have come today.
No, you're not getting him in front of a camera. He'll sit in the background and pull faces at me, but he won't get in front himself. But I was the same myself. I hated it. When we first started doing the marketing stuff, and we first started doing videos probably 3 years ago now, people just have to force me to get in front of the camera, and I'd rehearse my script to the point I knew exactly what I was going to say word for word. But you just fall into it, don't you? Once you start doing it, it becomes natural. And the more you think about it, the harder it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a case of getting on with it and doing it.
So is that how long you've been doing the social media stuff? About 3 years now?
We dipped our toes in and out a little bit. So we kind of about 3 years ago, we started doing the odd video to put ads behind it and power leads coming in, which worked well. But having an ad on its own without that brand awareness and the organic stuff just doesn't do the same. So we've focused a lot at the moment on doing the organic stuff, and then we'll introduce ads again in the not too distant future.
I done something similar. I started with ads, had a little bit of success, but it didn't scale it as fast as it should have done. You know?
No, I think what you typically find as well is your ad will generate your 100 leads, and there's probably one customer that's going to convert in there. So for those days and days you spend ringing through to find one, if they're a bit more of a warm audience that's been nurtured and so forth,
business gets done easier, doesn't it?
It does. It's easier if they know who you are already when you're speaking to them. It tends to help. So
how have you been? I mean, I think you've just got to forget the camera's there, don't you?
You do, absolutely. And it's just a case of you've made me really conscious that there's a camera there now. But no, it's just a case of forgetting the cameras are there and just get on with it. Just get on with it. And I think more than anything, if you try to portray yourself in front of a camera as something you're not, that's when it comes across false and it comes across difficult. I think just stop being yourself. Get in front of the camera and just get on with it. Forget it's there and don't overthink it, really.
I mean, it helps if you have 10 years experience in doing what you're doing.
It typically, if you know what you're talking about, it does help, absolutely, If I wanted to sit here and talk to you about, I don't know, dentistry or something, that you could tell I was blagging from a mile off, but when you know what you're talking about, you know your subject knowledge, it definitely helps.
So how has social media and getting your face out there and putting content out there improved Sillers as a business?
So I think it's one of those, it helps with our existing customers because they can see what we're doing and what's happening behind the scenes. So sometimes the landlord brings the property to an agency and they just believe that the office team are going to manage it, they'll find tenants, they'll look after the rent, they'll handle the maintenance, and they don't understand what the other services we offer or what else is involved in making that process happen. So it's really good for keeping your existing clients engaged and letting them know what's happening behind the scene, what else we're doing, what we're doing to grow the business, what other services we're offering, that sort of thing. But it's also good from the point of view of the marketing. Obviously, we're in property. Property is a very close-knit community throughout the country. And I think once you start getting your face seen in that community and people start to know who you are, it then makes doing business, as you know yourself, even easier, doesn't it? And people know who you are and investors start to recognise you. It makes it easier when you're trying to sell them that property, when you've got a deal for sale or when you're wanting to manage one of the properties and so forth. So it's helped us because it's pushing our brand out there massively. We've seen already when we're looking at the numbers behind it, which is the important thing in business, making money. The turnover has grown drastically this year so far already.
Amazing,
I think it's massively to do with introducing sourcing as a service. That's helped. But at the same time, I think the number of landlords coming through the door, the new listings coming on as well, is increasing, and we're already heading in the right direction.
100%. It looks like it from the outside looking in
Yeah.
as well. I mean, do you guys offer? I'm sure you do. Do you offer the traditional sales?
We don't. We don't. So we've tried sales. We've
Yeah.
dipped our toe into the market. Darlington's very, very competitive. You've got a lot of big player agents that have been around for lots and lots of years, and they're the household name when you think of selling your house the traditional route. And we were finding that getting market share was taking a lot of time, a lot of resources, and we were just to say covering the Rightmove bill at the other end of it, because Rightmove's a fortune. It's an absolute fortune. So it's kind of one of those, is there a better way to do this? And that's when we switched it on the head and did the sourcing. Because, look, lettings is our passion. Lettings is all I've ever known, really. It's all that the rest of the team have really known. So we feel much more comfortable with that as a service, and being able to do something that complements it, such as the sourcing, helping your landlords grow the portfolio, is a win-win for everyone. We're doing what we love, we're doing what we know, we're doing what we enjoy, and because of that, I think we can do even better at it.
You mentioned your team there.
Yeah.
Just tell me a little bit about who's in the team, what positions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a really strong team, quite a good team. They'll flog me for that when I get back to the office. We've got a really strong team. So you've got obviously Paul as our MD, our managing director, overseeing things. His business partner Anthony Sillers is our finance director. He's in the background, not customer facing. He's a chartered accountant, so he likes his numbers and so forth.
Yeah.
And then there's myself as the sales and lettings director, overseeing that side of things and generally overseeing and helping with business growth. I'm responsible for the sourcing, the investment side of things, and look after all of that. In the back end, we've then got our lettings team that do everything else, and that's made up of Sam doing front end lettings negotiator type roles, so listing them, booking the viewings, getting them let, applications, referencing. We've got Sue out on the road. Sam's been in industry probably as long as me, if not longer. Sue's been in 20 odd years with the same company, because before we were Sillers, there was another agency that we bought out in the early days, and Sue was with them.
Got you.
But at the point, Sue's on the road doing all of our inspections, inventories, all of the appointment, the field-based type stuff, and all the viewings. And then we've got the tenancy management side, which consists of Selena and Danielle. Selena on accounts and credit control, Danielle looking after the maintenance. So a really, really strong team there.
Solid setup, yeah, definitely.
With kind of all aspects covered as well, which is the key thing. So everything's covered. Everyone kind of knows the role, and it slots into one another really well. And
do you pride yourself on being better than the other agents in Darlow?
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. I mean, we differentiate ourselves because lettings is our focus.
Yeah.
And a lot of I'm sure some of the other agents will be watching this and thinking, how dare he? But we focus on lettings, and lettings is our bread and butter. So we're not just there to rent someone's property out and deal with the repairs. We're there to maximise someone's investment. So we'll do those investment portfolio reviews. Are you maximising it? Are you running it in the most efficient way? And how can we make those returns better? Rather than put a tenant in, do an inspection every 6 months, deal with maintenance, and just offering that basic bread and butter letting service. We're really enhanced on that side and deep dive into what investors want, really. And that's what we're pushing for.
So based on your experience and what you're seeing day to day, how do landlords maximise their return in 2024 and 2025?
So I think there's lots of ways to go about it. And I think kind of one of the key ways is making sure you're getting the right tenants from the offset.
On the front end?
On the front end, absolutely. And it all starts at the beginning, and it's getting the right property and the right tenant.
Yeah.
If you get the right property in the right location, then all that's going to happen, your rents are going to appreciate, your value is going to appreciate, maximising return.
Yeah.
You get the right tenants in that property, which are naturally drawn because you're in the right location. And again, you're going to have less maintenance, you're going to make sure your rent's paid, you're going to have less headache with it. So by getting it right at that front part, before you even start, that's where you maximise. Now, for some landlords that have already got properties, it's a bit late to say that, but there is still things you can do. And it's about looking at your maintenance. Are you being proactive rather than responsive with your maintenance? Things like having your gutters cleared every year can stop it getting to a point where water's leaking in and suddenly you've got to hack the plaster off and all that sort of stuff. And looking at your suppliers and so forth. Are you getting the best rate for your insurance? Are you getting the best rate for your accountancy? Are you getting the best rate for all of those supplies and your best rate for management as well? Are you the best agent? And sometimes the cheapest isn't the best because we're not the cheapest.
No,
But
they can't be, can they?
they can't. They can't.
Be. You need to invest in good people who want paying well.
Definitely.
So the business must need good margins in order to afford those people.
And when you look at these agents running around with a 5% fees, I think, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
Like, how can you afford it? But yeah, looking at the suppliers and making sure you're maximising those costs while keeping on top of rents as well, because they're ever increasing at the moment. You blink and it's gone up by 20 quid in the street. And just keeping the rents at the right level and keeping on top of it can maximise the investments.
So when you're screening the tenants, what are some common things that are like red flags that if a landlord is running their own portfolio themselves, what do they need to look out for?
I kind of think with my experience, you can spot a bad tenant from a mile off, and it's because they'll come in and they don't want to tell you where they're living at the moment. They haven't got a valid reason for moving. And they're normally the initial indicators. Where they come to the office, I need to move tomorrow. Okay, where are you at the moment? Oh, I'm just with a family member on the sofa. Well, how have you ended up on the sofa? What's the backstory to that? And there's legitimate reasons, of course there is. There absolutely is. But sometimes people being a bit skirty around the real reasons for the move is an indicator. I would always recommend to any landlord that they vet the tenants thoroughly. And if they're not able to do that themselves, then there's agents out there, us included, of course, but there's others as well that can help with that process and make sure your tenant's properly vetted. Looking at things like the credit history, obviously, are they paying the bills at the moment and so forth, and keeping on top of that. Bad credit is an indicator. In most cases, they're not suitable. How often do they move? If your tenant's jumped around every 3-4 months and they don't stay in one place for very long, then they're probably not going to be a great tenant. They're not going to be long term. You're going to have higher turnover. It's going to affect your return on investment and all the rest of it.
The turnover is what really, really kills the return on investment.
Absolutely.
Like, you need a tenant to be in there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years to really see the profit.
Absolutely. And I mean, as soon as you have a tenant leave, that month's void, coupled with an agent's relet fee, there's your profit for the year gone.
Potentially some sort of repairs or a bit of sprucing up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's difficult.
That's it. It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
So you started sourcing this year?
Sourcing, so we've it's a funny one because we've done sourcing on and off. I say on and off. We've done it as an unofficial service for quite a few years. So we've always had...
Did you used to do it for free?
For free, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. We used to do it for free. And we'd have landlords that would say, oh, I want to grow my portfolio and I want to go. And all I would say is, it's another managed property. It's another managed property. It's another management fee. And we'd chase after that. So when they're sending us Rightmove links saying, I like this one, can you go and view it for me? I'd sometimes spend a day running around viewing all of these properties for this landlord to go back and say, yeah, I think they're all good. This is what I'd offer for them. They'd do their own offer. They'd then come back and say, okay, I've got it now. Can you organise a gas check? And before you knew, I'd done most of the work, but not charged a fee. And it was to get this lettings property on the books. And it was only when there was another sourcer that we were working alongside in the area and they were referring their properties into us. And we were looking at it and thinking, they're getting paid to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that a thing? Do people get paid to do this? Because we're running around and doing it for free.
So what year was this? How long ago was this?
Initially, it was kind of around coming out the back end of lockdown, so 22, 23, that sort of thing. And that's when we're doing it for free, and that's when we're doing a lot of the running around. It was the back end of 2023 when we really looked at it and thought we were trying to do sales at that point. Sales wasn't doing all that well for us. We thought, well, how do we turn this on its head and how do we shift it? And we decided that the way to go was that let's go full in at sourcing and let's go for it. And not look back. I mean, it was a double-edged sword. We had a lot of landlords at that point looking to sell up, as most people in lettings will know. A lot of landlords, due to varying reasons, are wanting to get out the game. And we were passing them over to other estate agents, or we were going to be passing them over to estate agents. I was thinking, why am I doing that? And then the landlords that were coming in, I was either running around to find for free or someone else was bringing them to us. I thought, I can monetize this entire situation and create a win-win for both the people who want to buy and the people who want to sell, and we can do it internally. And that's where it was born from. It was born from landlord A wants to sell, we'd package it together to landlord B. There we go.
Make $3,000 and keep the management.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
You make some money, you keep the management, your seller's happy, your landlord's happy. It's a win-win for everyone. And then it was kind of, well, there's only so much we can do that, and it's doing great, it's keeping everyone happy, but it's not scalable as an income stream.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do we make it scalable? but we do exactly what we're doing internally now, and we offer it out to the wider public, and we offer it to investors that want that service, and that's where we are now.
And what was that process like then? Was there any challenges?
It was very daunting initially. It was
From
kind
a
of
mindset point of view, you think?
I think so. I think from a mindset point of view, heavily, because it's something we'd never done before, and it was very new to us. And you get that imposter syndrome. Can I do it? Are we capable of it? Is it the right thing to be doing? Is there a market for it? And you get all these questions running around, and it's sometimes just about getting over the mindset, believing we're going to do this and we're going to do it well, and pushing forward with it. Yeah. We did some training. Education as anything of these sorts of things is invaluable, and I feel like if we hadn't have done some form of training on it, I don't think we'd have ever took the steps and got on with it.
You got the skin in the game at that point.
Yeah, well, that's
the
it.
Investment, time, and financially.
And I think that's the other thing. Education's not cheap. It's a lot cheaper than ignorance, though, so you can't complain. But the money you've spent, I suppose you've got that skin in the game, and it's now right. We need to make a return on this investment. We need to make it work, and it forces you to get on with it. The initial challenge for us was we were finding the deals, we were finding the properties, and it was, well, who's going to buy them? We had a handful of investors that were existing clients, and they were buying the deals we were selling to them. It got to the point where I was putting things across, and they were going, looks great, Liam, it looks absolutely amazing, but you've spent all my money. It's kind of like, fair point. These investors don't have a bottomless pit. Yeah. They've already got so much they're working with. Yeah. And they're like, bring me another one in 6 months when I've refinanced that, and absolutely, I'll take it. And that was the initial challenge, because we burnt everyone out, we spent everyone's money, and then we were finding deals, and it's like, well, where do we go next? What do we do with them? Thankfully, with a lot of the social media stuff we've been doing, and just getting out there and speaking to people, that's brought more investors in. And then we're finding now that some of the initial ones are coming back to me saying ready to go again, and it's working really well, because really you've got that flow where it's turning over. So
brilliant. Yeah. So you invested into a mentor? Was it just a course in education?
So we did the course, done a 3-day course, and then invested into a mentorship off the back of that as well. Yeah. Which we've got the last session next week of that, to be fair. And again, I think it's helped having that accountability, and someone to give you a kick up the backside when you're not doing it. And when you set those goals of, I'm going to do this many social media posts this month, and then you don't do them. Cause it's very easy for social media to fall in the background, because no one likes doing it. It's not fun. No. And it's when you're dealing with clients, they become your priority, and that falls to the wayside. Yeah. When you've got someone saying, holding you accountable to your excuses, really, I think it's worth its weight in gold. Yeah. When you're given the old excuse of, I haven't got time, well, get up an hour earlier then, do it in the morning before you start, that sort of thing.
Have you been able to tap into that network, not so much the education, as well as the education and the accountability? Did you also get the network, and did that have a financial benefit for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So the network that's been there in the back of that, we've been able to pick some investors up that have been in the area and so forth. We've came across other people that are doing the same as what we're doing, just in different locations. So there's times when we might have a deal available, but not an investor right there, but someone else does have the investor to work with as well. And then there's obviously the option of kind of utilising the training providers network as well to sell our deals as well, which helps.
I think, did you know that going into it? Did you think, I'm going to actually build my network here rather than just learn information and education?
No, I don't think you do. I don't think you do initially when you start off. You're looking at just getting the skills and the knowledge to do it. Yeah. And what you realise is the skills and knowledge is something that the knowledge you pick up very quickly. Once you know how to analyse a deal and how to stack a deal, you know how to do it. The skills of being able to spot the opportunities is something that you're never going to learn in a training environment. You're not going to learn that in a classroom. You'll learn that being on the ground, looking at deals, making mistakes, and you hone it and fine-tune it as you go. Yeah. But that network and the people around you is the thing that you don't think about going into it. It's only afterwards when you reflect and look at it and think, God, all these connections I've made and all this business we've done off the back of that, it's made that investment for the training worthwhile on that alone.
That's the most valuable part of investing into a mentor or a community for me, is building out your network.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Have you guys done any other mentorship in terms of like lettings or general business or marketing, or have you just had the sourcing mentor?
We've did some bits for the letting agency before we did the sourcing, to be fair, and it's a company, Agent Rainmaker.
Yeah,
Have you heard of them? So we went and did their funnel building masterclass and the marketing. Really good. Got loads of leads coming in. It was then the difficulty of finding the time to ring the leads. It was like, God, how do we deal with this? But we're actually looking to, we've re-engaged with them recently about how do we take the agency now to the next steps. I mean, we're doing well on a day-to-day. We're bringing stuff in on a daily basis. We're bringing in new landlords. We are growing. Obviously, we've got the announcement of the new branch and an upcoming acquisition with that as well, which is really good. But we want to take over the Northeast is what we want to do. We want to be the biggest and the best agency in the Northeast. And we're kind of thinking the sourcing's good. It helps that side of things. It's brilliant. Really enjoy it. But we're building the portfolio one property at a time there. We want to be looking at how can we do this on the scale? How can we take over?
Exciting, mate. So you've got a nice role, really, haven't you? I mean, how much do you get involved with the operations?
I generally don't do much on the day-to-day letting side of things. That I will, if the wheels fall off, which doesn't happen all that often, I'll jump in. I'll kind of, through daily meetings and management with the team, I'll oversee it and make sure things are happening as they should be. I can't remember the last time I ordered a gas safety check. So I'm probably a little bit out of touch with the hands-on stuff.
And then how does your role differ to Paul? As MD?
So Paul's more looking at the strategic and overall type stuff. So he's more looking at what's 6 months ahead of us. I'm more the day-to-day. So these keys have gone missing is a key one. We've lost the keys. Like, how have you lost the keys again? It's simple. Hang them on the hook. It's anyone in agency will completely understand the key scenario. We've all done it. We've just spent a fortune on a new key system to stop it, to be honest. But yeah, that's the sort of thing. The day-to-day, when a member of staff needs a bit of support, that sort of thing, that's where I'm on hand. Whereas Paul isn't so much doing that. He's more focused on the long term.
So how many members of staff have you got in the team?
There's four full-times in the office, 4 based in the office, and then there's obviously the 2 directors and myself.
So about 7.
So it'd be 7 of us.
What I'm getting at is, when I see people have success with sourcing, they start a letting agency. And what's your thoughts about that?
I think starting a letting agency from scratch, you've got to have been a letting agent to fully understand how that works. It's good understanding how a buy-to-let investment property works, and you can have an understanding of legislation, but until you've got that hands-on experience of dealing with a difficult tenant or dealing with a landlord that doesn't want to pay for that boiler repair when the tenant's freezing cold on Christmas Eve in -3. But until you've dealt with that and you've got that hands-on experience, I don't think anything can properly prepare you for that. So there's good and... I mean, the strong thing is when you've been a sourcer on your own and built a letting agency off the back of it, you've got a great relationship with the clients. The clients have bought into you. They've just trusted you to buy probably one of the biggest spends that they're going to spend that year. It's one of the highest value products they're going to buy as a property. So if they've trusted you with that, then naturally you've got a good relationship to be trusted with management. I just think it's important that people do the research and understand what they're getting into before they get into it. Because you see some where they get into lettings and have no idea what they're doing, and then you end up falling foul of the law, getting yourself in hot water and so forth.
Or just completely like neglecting the sourcing bit, which is the most profitable.
And that's the other side of it. You can very easily become static with the management of it, and unless you've got a system and you've got people there in the background to handle that for you, and you've built that machine to deal with the management, it's then difficult to do anything else onward. So there's a few years ago, I was very much on the tools with the lettings, dealing with the day-to-day, dealing with the landlords, and it was impossible to do any business development and any business growth because you're tied to a desk, you're dealing with that. And I suppose if you chuck yourself into that without that support network, without a team behind you, it's tricky to keep going, to keep sourcing, keep growing.
It needs a proper infrastructure, doesn't it, to be able to
proper
manage.
Infrastructure.
You need, you've
setup.
got bookkeeping, you've got on the road stuff, you've got all the admin stuff, and like you say, you've got like stuff that you just won't be prepared for and know how to handle when landlords don't want to pay for stuff, or tenants just.
And there's a lot of them, isn't there? There's a lot of them that don't want to spend money.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great landlords. You get some tricky ones from time to time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're the only, like I say, it's things that come to you with experience and time in the game, really.
Yeah. Have you got any plans to do your own portfolio?
That is a plan for the future. It's only recently became a plan. So I remember when I first started an agency, it was kind of in my mind that I want to be a landlord, I want to have my own properties. And then dealing with the hands-on, it terrified me, and I thought, I got nothing to do with that.
Mate, I'm exactly the same. Like, I grew our managed book to like 200 in a few years.
Yeah.
And that's totally put me off scaling up my own portfolio.
Yeah, I think because you look at it and you look at some of the horror stories and you think, God, I want nothing to do with that. I don't want to touch it. It's only been more recently, probably because I'm becoming detached and off the tools, that I'm starting to think, actually, future plans, probably for the legacy, for the long term, I probably do need to be looking at my own portfolio, my own investments.
And I think it's a mindset thing as well. It's not fast pound, it's slow pound, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, it's 5, 10, 15 year.
Yeah, that's
wealth
it.
building,
That's it for the long term, for the future, and
financial freedom.
Yeah, it's not a get rich quick, unfortunately, property, is it? It's
no, absolutely not. So you mentioned second branch.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Exciting.
Very, very exciting. So
it's a big move as well. Second branch.
It is.
It's going to be probably a totally different business in terms of how you operate.
Yeah, it is, and we're just kind of finding our feet with how that's going to be structured and so forth at the moment, but it's always been on our radar that we wanted to grow, wanted to expand, and
because it's mission takeover, not
but that's
takeover,
that's it, and that's the mission: take over the Northeast, and we want to have branches in the future in every town in the Northeast, and we want to be. Don't want to be a corporate. We still want to be a local independent agent, but we want to be a large independent with multiple branches.
Focused on the same lettings and sourcing.
Absolutely, and that's our. I think we've found our kind of sweet spot in the market. We found the bit that we're passionate about, and that's what drives us forward, is that passion of enjoying what we do. So we're going to stick to that. That's the setup. That's what we're doing, and let's scale it. Let's take it across the Northeast.
How far are you into that second branch deal, as you call it?
Yeah, so the announcement of the second branch was announced about a month or so ago that we're moving to Durham. We've got a location in Durham. We've got all the stuff set up, ready to go, and looking for kind of those first properties over there and so forth. We've just been bolstered massively with the acquisition of another agency in the area, which completes on the 1st of November. Wow, so that's good. That takes us from kind of around the 300 properties where we were for Darlington to the 500 that we'll be managing.
And is that County Durham stock as well?
It's Durham City Centre. It ranges from Durham itself, County Durham, so your Aycliffes, Bishops and so forth. And there's the odd anomaly HMO and student lets towards your Sunderlands and Newcastles as well. So fairly spread, but I think we're in two really good strategic locations there to cover the Northeast.
So I bought an agency in County Durham, and the amount of sales that come off the back of that, what I found was like just after COVID times, Teesside was really good because the prices were low, 60 grandish, and then once that COVID spike with the house prices came. Yeah, everyone started moving further north up to like County Durham because the prices were still cheap and the yields were still really high. So you'll do a ton of business off the back of that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've got a couple of things come across my desk over the last couple of days, 30 grand purchase prices, and I'm looking thinking, God, to someone in the south, they can't buy a parking space for that, can they? So I'm sure they'll sell with no problem, but I'm excited to get them ones out.
They definitely will. So, just sorry, mate, what did you say? How far are you away from... So, the 1st of November?
1st of November.
And is that when you guys open?
1st of November is when, essentially, we take on the agency we're merging with. So, we're kind of all hands on deck at the moment with the onboarding, getting them set up on the systems, making sure we've got all the safety certs, we've got everything we need. Health checking each tenancy as well. I mean, as much as we've done the due diligence on what we're buying, we just want to make sure, once we're responsible, that everything's in tip-top order. So... yeah, all hands on deck with the onboard, ready to go for the 1st of November. But I mean, we're still taking stuff in Durham now. So if someone comes to us and says, "We've got a property in Durham," absolutely, we'll get it on Rightmove. We'll start that marketing and so forth.
It sounds like things are really going well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
But what is the toughest thing about being a property sourcer?
Good question. I think there's two parts to it. And it's probably the two main bits. It's finding good deals in good areas, and it's finding quality investors to buy them. It's not easy. It's not, and a lot of people will go onto social media and say become a property source. So it's really easy. You need no money to get into it, and you're going to make millions in your first year. It's not. It's hard work. It takes long hours. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of effort that people don't see, and you don't put that on social media. I don't go to social media and shout about how hard it was to get that deal over the line. I shout about how great the returns were for the investor, but not the work behind. If I had to say the hardest thing, I think it is. It's getting going with those investors initially, and I think once you've proven your salt and you've proven that you can deliver results and you've done the job for those first few investors, it's then easier because you've got the case studies to present to the others. The next one you onboard's even easier and easier and easier. It doesn't ever get easy, but it gets easier as time goes on.
What's the toughest thing about being a letting agent?
Tenants, 100%. I always say, I joke with the team in the office and say our job would be amazing if it wasn't for tenants. Someone did
landlords.
Someone did point out the other day that we wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for tenants, and I thought you've got a fair point there actually. But tenants that can chuck a whole world of problems at you, and before you know it, you're not just a letting agent, you become the social worker, you become the friend, and it's a whole different role into one, and there's a lot of different kind of social, economic factors that come into it in the tenants' lives, and no two are the same, no two tenant situations are the same, and the situations they put you in as an agency are never the same either. So
it is such a tough role to hire for, because you need to be resilient. Yeah, you need to be able to know how to deal with people, and it's not like a really well-paid job, is it? It's not like a sexy tech job, or you really.
That's it. You've got to really have your wits about you and not be scared to get stuck in. For average money, I suppose, is the top and bottom. Thankfully, there is opportunities to progress in the industry and so forth, but unless you're in a senior position, or you end up in a senior position with an agency, or you end up being an agency owner, the money isn't all that attractive, but you are expected to be very much all-rounded, like you say, and have all them different skills.
Do you see the North East market continuing its growth?
I think so. Yeah, I reckon so, absolutely. Interest rates have crept down ever so slightly, which is always positive, but hasn't made a huge difference just yet. Who knows what comes with the budget? That will obviously have an impact as well, but if I had a crystal ball, it would make the job extremely easy. But no, I think it's continuing to grow. I think the North East will always be popular, because when you look at that balance compared to the south of the country and the better returns you can get on investment properties and so forth, there'll always be a market here from people out of area wanting to invest in the area.
And you guys are positioned so well with that second acquisition, with that second branch in County Durham. Yeah, you really are. Yeah. So, what's the plan for Systemise going forward?
Yeah, so the plan for Systemise, like I say, is initial short term is to get Durham up and running, get that underway, deal with this acquisition, get everything settled in, and get us all ready to move forward. And then from there, it's to grow and continue growing. We want to, like I say, become that household name for anyone who wants to invest in property in the North East, for anyone who has investment property in the North East, and we want to be that go-to one-stop shop. And that's where we're striving to be. That's what we're pushing for. Big ambitions. We've got some big competitors to take out on the way, but who knows? If we can't beat them, we might just have to buy them. But we'll see what happens with that, and keep pushing.
Amazing, mate. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to touch on before we finish?
I think that's all good, mate.
And how can people get in touch with you, Liam?
So you can get in touch with me directly on our website, systemise.co.uk. I've got our own website there. Or on my socials as well, Liam McCallum Property. You'll find me there.
Socials are good. I definitely like following the journey of what you're up to.
Take a lot of time and effort to do, but it's worth it. It's paying off.
Thanks so much, mate.
Thanks a lot, mate. Appreciate that. Thank you very much, mate.
Cheers.